Candy counter glass melts in your mouth, but not too fast. Just to be near it makes your mouth water, smooth and sweet like a Baptist preacher's daughter. Now, I've got the chocolate just for you. You can lick it off your fingers like we used to do. When I speak your name, just like that, I'm thinking about chocolate and grinning on that. And so, excuse me, there were more developments that came along. There were places where we partied. On the corner of 6th Road and 10th Street was George Feeney's bar. It was called the Oak Grove Inn, but everybody called it Feeney's. There was a dance patio there, and if you can imagine a big gazebo with a tree in the middle and a jukebox. And people, local people from Newtonville went there on Saturdays and partied. But on Sundays, people came down from Philadelphia in their 1960 convertibles and stretched out on blankets under the trees and ate the delicious barbecue from Nina and Pete Peterson's barbecue stand, which is still sitting there on the side of the road. If you go down 6th Road at 10th and 11th, you still see the little barbecue stand there. And they also made homemade ice cream. And that was one of my first jobs, which was to learn how to scoop up ice cream. And the Petersons were very active in community efforts and I guess what you would call community politics in those days. They belonged to an organization called the Newtonville Social Club, and they sponsored trips like the trip to the New York World's Fair in 1965, where I went in the Coca-Cola Pavilion and fell in love with that little electronic frog, which I later found out went to Carolyn Kennedy. Over the years, more developments came in. There was another development called the Jersey Carolina Homes, which came about in the 70s. And this started to bring in different families. This started to usher in, integration into Newtonville as a community. And there was another development. And now if you go into Newtonville, you see these, very nice homes on Jackson Road, on 11th Street, where we grew up. I am a subject in the book Small Towns, Black Lives by Wendell White, and I'm also a subject in the book Legendary Locals of the New Jersey Pinelands, or Pine Barrens. So that's just a little bit about what I recall about living in Newtonville. I'm going to turn the floor over to my brother. But I just want you to remember that where I come from, we don't have hay, just tall brown fields where the children play.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Now that is my lovely sister. How can I top that?
Good question.
Yeah. I mean, I've been listening to her my whole life. So
You must have learned it.
I learned a few things along the road here, I think. So I'm going to try not to repeat some of the things that she said. But I'm going to give you a little bit on our family. She spoke about my mother working at Ancora. My mother had 5 children. It's my sister. I had 2 other sisters. My baby sister deceased. I have 1 brother. My mother was what I would call a missionary. She was a missionary worker. She was a caring person who would do anything for anybody that she could, and she worked in the community, and she really tried to help people as much as she can. And along the line, that kind of grew into all of us. She was a God-fearing person. She went to church, and she taught us to believe in God, and to this very day, we all do. So she made she impacted us, even to today, okay? She went back to school after being at Ancora as a nursing attendant. She went to Land Community College and she received her LPN license. And she retired at the All Wars Memorial in Vineland on the Boulevard. And over the years, she would come home at night and or in the morning because she worked grave shift. And when we had time, she would tell me anyway, little stories about the soldiers over there. And over the years, she learned to admire the soldiers, and she taught me to admire the soldiers and to give them respect. And to this day, you know, when I see a veteran or a soldier, I always say, thank you for your service. And I think that that's what we all should do. I was gonna go into some local veterans tonight, but as I looked at the history, there's so many of us. It's hard to really single any of them out. And to me, it's like a good basketball, football team, you know, that wins a championship. You gotta mention all the players or it ain't worth, you know, mentioning. So that's where we're at with that. So I'd just like to say a thank you to any of the veterans that are here and the veterans that are in the community. From the Washington family, we do respect you and we thank you all for your service. It's from the bottom of our hearts. There have been many firsts in my life, I guess you could say. I call some of them might be dubious awards in some respects. But one of the things that I would like to say is that my mom was, once again, she was a single parent, and she also was the first parent at our home in Newtonville to receive the HUD home in Atlantic County as a single parent. So that is something that I was kind of proud of about my mom. She liked progression in her life. She, again, she went to college and everything, got her LPN license, went over to the All Wars Memorial, retired. My brothers and sisters, most of them are very bright. They almost, Michelle got financial assistance to go to college. She went to Monmouth College at the time, it's Monmouth University now. My brothers and sisters, they were all very bright, got financial assistance going to college. I was the one who didn't. So,
But you're the barber, you have a profession.
all right, I went to school for cosmetology and became a cosmetologist, and that's what I did. That's what my trade.
We could tell. You did a good job.
Yeah, just give me a second here. Yeah. So, So growing up, we really never had a lot, like Michelle was saying. You know, we were very, we lived on a modest income. We didn't have a lot. My mom at one point was on welfare and everything. And she ended up getting off of it. My name, again, one of the things I'm kind of proud about is that, as Michelle said, I'm 54. I turned 54 February 22nd, which is George Washington's birthday. So my birthday is on Washington's birthday. So
His birthday is on your birthday.
yeah, his birthday is on my birthday, right? So, but prior, I had, at 10 years old, I was diagnosed with a rhabdomyosarcoma tumor, which was in my right eye, which they gave me 4 to 6 weeks to live at that time. I'm still here. So I can remember the doctors at the University of Penn and Lincoln Hall and Wills Eyes, all in the room, saying that, you know, you got this 4 to 6 weeks to live. My mom was crying. She had other family members there. And I turned to her, I said, Mom, I said, why are you crying? She said, you're sick, you're sick. I said, but Mom, I've been taking you to church my whole life. You told me to believe in God. Why are you listening to these people tell us I'm gonna die in 4 to 6 weeks? So with that, I got up with my intravenous and walked out the room. And I never looked back. So that was something that I always remember. She was so worried about me at that time. And it was a lot of sacrifice that she made along the way. Like I said, she lived on humble means as an LPN at the Soldiers Home, but she took me to get my radiation and chemotherapy for 2 years up in Children's Hospital on the University of Pennsylvania. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. With no assistance from anyone. Yeah, I can remember Michelle, she was talking about some of those sandy paths. I can remember taking the shortcuts with her up to, there's also a big oak tree, it's probably still sitting there, where the Newtonville school was at. That's where we used to have a summer day camp program at one time too. And I can remember taking the shortcut. It's a shortcut, if not, you have to walk around 9th Street to get up to the post office. But you take the railroad tracks, it's a shorter way. So we would often take the tracks, but sometimes Michelle would pull us down. We had different, some of the old white men that would ride by, they had hound dogs and stuff in the car, and the trucks, and guns and stuff, you know, so she said, get down in the bushes, stay down quiet. And they ride by, and then we can get up and keep walking. So that was a very frightening experience, growing up in Newtonville. I also ended up getting cancer a second time when my kidney died. 2 times cancer survivor.
Evan, can I tell you something?
Yes, sir.
Remember when your sister was talking about the Bud Mansion?
Yes.
Well, when they were there, the Bud Theaters, you would attend so many movies, and you would get a picnic lot over on the other side of 54.
Oh, yeah?
When Chifalayo built that trash plant out there,
Okay, yeah.
he told me he ran across all these little squares, like George Smith with a, and he said, how do you end up buying like a 15 by 20 plot of land? Well,
Yeah.
like your sister said in Lake Ann, these people would pay taxes, never even seen this little plot of land.
Right, that happened a lot. That happened a lot in
Yeah,
Newtonville,
yeah.
Even across from Newtonville behind Buena Acres. Between Buena Acres and Jackson Road there, all of those roads were cut out. Yeah, a lot of development
On
that was
11th Street, between 10th and 11th.
Yeah. A lot of property was sold down there.
I remember hearing on WABC when I was growing up in North Jersey. On the requirement, $10 down, $10 to buy this beautiful piece of property
Okay.
in rural southern Jersey.
Okay, so while I was going through my surgery, you guys may not believe this, but actually, God came to me and he said, you're not ready to go into heaven yet. You gotta go back. And he said, when you get back, you better do something to show me that you're gonna enter this place one day. So as the years went on, I thought about it, and I was, thinking about my future as a young teenager. As I got older, and once I graduated high school, I went to St. Augustine for a few years, but I did eventually graduate in 1984 from Buena Regional High School. And when I graduated that same summer, 1984, there wasn't anything to do in the community for the kids. So even when I came up, there wasn't much for us to do. So I wanted to start something for the kids. And I went to Route 50, Lauderdale, to the 4-H club up there, and found a rep that would come to Newtonville and work with me and some kids to start a chapter of the 4-H club. And that's what we did. That was June, July of 1984. And one day, we were putting a garden together, a community garden we had started there, at a lady's house named Miss White, who lived at, right there on 9th Street. on the other side, slightly over on the other side of Jackson Road. And a lady by the name of Miss Evelyn Walker came to me while we were out there in the garden that day, and I had about 15 kids with me that day. And I had some parents that were also working with me with their children. Miss Santiago, I don't know, you know, Carmen Santiago, her daughter, David, her son David, and Lucy. We had Anthony and Frank Dredden who were part of it. We had Gary Monroe, my sister Stephanie, my baby sister, Miss Leslie Fisher.